Smash tournaments are notoriously time-consuming, and though we've come a long way from the Brawl days, where 20-man tournaments took like 10 hours, you still need an awful lot of stamina to get through them, and it's pretty standard to get about halfway through a bracket before your brain just goes on strike and leaves you haplessly brain dead. The other day at a tournament, a player by the name of Brooklyn looked me in the eye and he said, "Hey Verm, you kinda ugly." And I said, "Yeah, I know." But then he asked me how I had the stamina to keep going after almost 8 hours of virtually non-stop playing between doubles and singles. I didn't quite know how to answer that at first until a light bulb went off in my head. I'm so experienced and comfortable with Ganon that if I get fatigued using him, I may as well need to take a nap every time I take a breath. But that's definitely not the case with my much less experienced Belmonts. Maybe it's just that I'm not used to having the power of God and anime on my side, and that just takes it out of me, but I burn out really fast with the Belmonts. Why though? I wouldn't really say that the Belmonts require much more thought than Ganon to play successfully. They might well even require less. So what's the big issue? I'd say the difference in mental stamina between my Ganon and my Belmonts isn't really a matter of more or less stamina at all, but how efficiently I think, or rather, how much of that stamina I even need to use in the first place. That said, as Ganon, it's a little hard to surprise me since throughout the years I've come to know how to deal with just about every conceivable thing you can throw at me, so the amount of novel on-the-spot thinking I have to do in a match is pretty close to zero, and most of my brain power just goes to making observations and adapting accordingly. Generally speaking, I know what to expect, and keeping up with the evolution of the set isn't a draining task for that reason. Compare this to my Belmonts, with whom I mostly just ad-lib and improvise on the spot. I'm under constant stress when I play the Belmonts because I'm under a non-stop gauntlet of unexpected outcomes and constant need to think of what the hell I'm supposed to do next. Every time I do basically anything with them, I think to myself, well, gee, I didn't really think I'd get this far. Like I mentioned in my autopiloting video, which I'll link at the end of the video for those of you who haven't seen it yet, when you have to think, not just be sort of generally aware of what's happening, but actively think and generate new ideas about what to do, you're using a lot of precious mental resources, and it's a short road from there until your brain starts to cook and fizzle out. Point being, as Ganon, I'm comfortably able to recognize familiar situations and anticipate potential outcomes. As Belmonts, on the other hand, before I can even process what just happened, I have to deal with and think about the next new and foreign situation, and yeah, it's a total brain drain. So, by this line of thinking, if you feel as though you sink like a rock after only a few sets, chances are good that you might fly by the seat of your pants and have a tough time anticipating outcomes, or the things you do don't produce the outcomes you expect, so you're always a step behind playing catch-up. This sort of reminds me of when I was in driving school. My driving instructor said something to me that just sort of stuck with me. Let me see if I can remember it. No, that's not it. Oh yeah. He said, for experienced drivers, driving is a routine task. For you guys, aka the students, driving is a thinking task. I think that line pretty much nails what I'm talking about here. For many, playing is an active thinking task, while for more experienced players and pros, it's a routine task. Imagine driving in a place like LA or New York City for the first time versus people who commute there every day. The new person wants to rip their hair out and is perpetually on the cusp of having a mental episode, while for the commuter it's just Tuesday. In other words, the fewer surprises you have to deal with, the less stressed you are, and at the risk of sounding like this just applies to those who just smack their controller against their face to play, it applies to even those who feel decently competent. You can know how to make a dish well enough, but if you just eyeball all your spices instead of measuring them out, you'll have to concentrate a lot harder, and the same principle applies to mental stamina. Now, what good does all this information do us? For starters, with this in mind, we at least know that the problem isn't about just playing more to get used to mind-numbing mental overload to increase our mental stamina. Acknowledging that is a big first step, since an intuitive and therefore tempting, but completely dead-end way to go is to train like you're lifting weights through prolonged exposure to progressively higher levels of stress. Lots of folks will do this in an attempt to train their reaction times against like CPU ledge options too, and it just doesn't work. Secondly, it tells us that how efficiently we think is key, and that it's not how much of a mental resource we have, but how we use it. If you've watched my stuff for really any amount of time, you probably know a common theme of mine is organized thinking, which naturally leads to efficient thinking. So, what's the discerning bachelor or bachelorette to do to organize their thinking? That is a rabbit hole question with a lot to unpack, and I do a lot of that unpacking in my other videos, which I'll of course link to at the end of this video, but just to scratch the surface, ask yourself, does any given match just sort of blend together into one great big blur for you? Do you just sort of play reactively and ad-lib everything? I ask because any given match is a sequence of events, but not just any events, repeated events. You're often in the exact same situation several times without realizing, and so how you act in that situation may vary from case to case. In essence, you're in a constant state of processing similar situations as if they're new and different situations, so your brain is putting in overtime to keep up. If you're not comfortable anticipating potential outcomes and what you'll do in them, then mentally speaking, you're using dynamite to blow open a can of peaches. You're using resources that are extravagantly overkill for the job, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, at the risk of going too deep into an entirely separate topic, I think I'll leave things here. The big takeaways, though, I'd like you to take away from this video are the following. Firstly, I claim it's pointless to train mental stamina in the same way you'd train a muscle, that is, repeated exposure to stress. Secondly, good mental stamina isn't necessarily good mental stamina per se, but efficient use of mental resources as a result of being able to recognize familiar situations and anticipate potential outcomes, which, while this comes from playing a lot, is not the result simply of playing a lot. So there you have it. If mental stamina has been an issue for you, then I hope past the point of watching this video, if I did my job properly, that you'll have at least some idea of how to attack the problem. Efficient mental resource use, or equivalently, developing good mental stamina, is about dedicating active attention during your friendlies, VOD review, and generally non-tournament time to structuring and framing the flow of a match in a way that makes sense to you and helps you reduce the amount of new ideas you have to generate and surprises you have to account for mid-match. Hi guys, if you made it all the way to the end of the video here, then thank you very much for watching. First things first, the videos I mentioned about helping you organize your thinking are linked down below in the description, and I think, or at least hope, you'll find them pretty handy. Second, if you thought this video was kinda neat or really helpful at all, and want to make sure they keep coming, you can do just that by any combination of liking the video, subscribing, or if you feel particularly strong about it, you can check out my Patreon with the link down below also in the description. Think of it like a subscription fee that you only pay if you really want to. Also, I'm now streaming every Sunday and Monday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, doing things like viewer battles, and soon we'll be doing lessons and analysis there as well. So if you're around at those times, I'll put the link in the description and come stop by. I would absolutely love to see you guys there. At that, I will see you guys next time.